Hey, you okay? Hang in there.
My husband, John, became unconscious in the bathroom while bathing with our daughter. This sudden incident had me in a panic. No matter how many times I called out, there was no response from him.
I'm gonna call an ambulance right now.
Seeing John collapsed in front of me, I was shaken and my hands trembled as I tried to dial for help on my phone. The worst possible scenarios kept flashing through my mind. Taking a deep breath, I was about to make the call, when my daughter said something shocking. "We should just leave him, who cares? Let's get a divorce already."
What are you saying? At a time like this?
I couldn't believe she was joking at such a critical moment. And suggesting a divorce, what was she thinking? Even though she was my daughter, I was so upset that I raised my voice at her. But she looked so serious, it didn't seem like a joke at all. Could she actually be serious? Divorce? Why would you say something like that? Well, you see. Her words sent chills down my spine. I never imagined there could be such a reason. She looked me straight in the eyes and said again, "Got it? Let's get out of here quickly." Silently, I nodded and hurried out of the house with her. My name is Karen. 35 years old. Currently, I work part-time in the mornings at a local pharmacy. Ah, you're back. You must be tired. Mom, welcome home. It was a day off, and I had left the kids with John. When I got home, the two of them greeted me with smiles. I met John, a pharmacist, back in high school, and we reconnected at a reunion, which led to us dating. After 3 years together, we got married. He works hard, often staying late at work, especially since we had our daughter. But he always prioritizes us, no matter how tired he is. I'm constantly grateful for him. Lily, were you a good girl and listened to your dad?
Yes.
Our daughter, Lily, just started first grade this year. Her constant cheerfulness lifts my spirits, and I forget all my troubles when I'm with her. How about we make your favorite hamburgers for dinner tonight?
Really? Yay! Dad, did you hear? We're having hamburgers tonight.
Watching her overjoyed reaction, I began to prepare dinner with a smile. However, within an hour, I started feeling increasingly unwell. Uh-oh. I've got a headache. Having been frail since I was young, I often fell ill. While enduring the pain in the kitchen, John noticed and came to my aid.
Hey, are you okay?
Yeah. I'm fine. Even if you say so, you look pale. Maybe you should rest? Maybe, but Lily was looking forward to dinner. No need to push yourself today. You can make it tomorrow, right? John suggested that, and despite feeling sorry for my daughter, I decided to take a rest. Lily, sorry. I'll make it tomorrow. Mom, are you okay? Lily can wait until tomorrow, no problem. Oh, that's right. As I was about to return to my room, Lily seemed to remember something and hurriedly went to John. I wondered what she was up to. When she came back to me, she had medicine and a glass of water in her hand.
This is Dad's magic medicine. Take this and get better.
Thank you. With this, I should be better by tomorrow. I was so grateful to have a pharmacist husband at that moment. He always prepares various medicines for me, knowing my frail health. Surrounded by my kind husband and daughter, I felt so blessed. With these thoughts, I drifted off to sleep. The next morning, when I woke up, my headache was gone, and I felt completely well. Going to the living room from my bedroom, I found that John and Lily were already up.
Ah. Mom. You're feeling better.
Thanks to Lily, I'm all better. As I chatted with my daughter, John, wearing an apron, brought breakfast. Your color looks good, seems you're okay. But, you have the day off, right? Rest for the day, okay? Okay. Thank you. I'll take it easy. All right, then I'm off to work soon. John took off his apron and headed to the entrance. Lily and I followed to see him off.
Dad, have a good day at work.
Sure.
I'll do my best.
After this exchange, we bid John goodbye as he left for work. I felt so lucky to have such a wonderful husband. I thought about how our happy life would continue like this. I was lost in these thoughts, basking in the contentment of my life. But at that moment, I had no idea that this happiness was about to be abruptly shattered. 30 minutes later. After dropping Lily off at school, I returned home and was relaxing in the living room, watching TV. I had no work today, so I decided to take it easy as John had suggested. I felt a bit guilty about yesterday, having caused trouble for both of them. I let Lily down too. Suddenly, I thought about how I was always troubling John and Lily, and decided to make a slightly more lavish dinner as a token of my gratitude. I started preparing dinner for midday, but got a bit carried away, making enough food to look like it was someone's birthday party. Oops. I might have overdone it a bit. With these thoughts, I continued preparing dinner and then went to pick up Lily and returned home. The moment she entered the house, she started shouting joyfully.
The food smells amazing. What's for dinner today?
Lily burst into the living room, tossed her backpack aside, and scurried towards the kitchen. Today, I made the hamburgers I couldn't make yesterday, and Dad's favorite fried chicken.
Wow! Yes!
She must have been really looking forward to it. Watching her jump around with joy, I couldn't help but smile. With Lily's help, we finished preparing dinner. Let's eat when Dad comes back. I decided to wait for John's return with Lily. Lily, too, was eagerly awaiting her dad. But even at the time he usually returns, John hadn't come home. Dad's late, isn't he? Yeah. I'm hungry. Eat first? No. I want to eat with Dad. Lily said, looking down. What could have happened to John? He's usually home by now. The clock had already passed 8 p.m. I felt bad making Lily wait any longer. Just as I was about to message John that we'd eat first, I received a message from him. A junior at work is really struggling with something. I've decided to have dinner with him and listen to his problems, so I'll be home late. Sorry. He could have told me earlier. Although I was internally upset about the sudden change, John has always been kind to everyone. He probably couldn't ignore his junior's troubles. Lily, Dad's going to be late today, so let's eat first? Really? Okay. When I told Lily about John's late return, she looked quite sad. But it couldn't be helped. If we kept waiting for John, who knows when we'd eat. After finishing dinner with Lily and putting her to bed, it was almost midnight. I'm home. That's when John quietly came back, trying not to make much noise. He didn't seem to have been drinking. Welcome back. How was your junior? Well, he's okay for now, but I've decided to help him with work for a while, so I might be coming home late every day. At the entrance, John said that. He already has a lot of overtime and comes home late, and now it's going to be even later? I understand that his junior is important, but I wish he could come home earlier for us. I wanted to say this to him, but he's working hard to support me and Lily, so I couldn't say anything more. That's so. Today, Lily was trying hard to wait to eat dinner with you. But it's work, can't be helped. Is that so? I'm sorry. How about this Sunday? I'm off work, and we could go to the amusement park as a family for a change. I think Lily would love that. I'll tell her tomorrow. Oh. Here, let me take your jacket. Thanks. I just wanted to jump into the bath quickly. I'll go take a shower now. The moment I took his jacket, I smelled a scent that was unfamiliar to me. This smell. It was like a woman's perfume. I never wear perfume. For a moment, I doubted John, but then thought it might be my imagination and didn't think more of it. And then, on Saturday. Tomorrow we're going to the amusement park, right? Yeah. Are you excited?
Yes. Excited to play with Dad. Then, let's go to bed early today so we can enjoy tomorrow, okay? Okay.
After that heartwarming conversation, Lily and I saw John off. After he left, while relaxing in the living room, I suddenly remembered that we might be running out of groceries. I had used a lot this week, so we needed to restock. Since there wasn't much else to do that day, I decided to go grocery shopping with Lily. As I browsed the store, looking for any special deals, I was approached by Mrs. Johnson, a mother of one of Lily's classmates.
Oh. Isn't that Karen? Long time no see. Ah. Yes, it's been a while.
After a brief greeting, we started chatting, but after a while, I heard something shocking from her. Mrs. Johnson looked around nervously, then leaned in and whispered. I don't know if this is appropriate to say in a supermarket, but isn't your husband working with a young woman? No, I haven't heard anything like that. I hope it was just my mistake, but I saw them the other day. Saw what? I couldn't believe what Mrs. Johnson was saying, but having heard she saw it with her own eyes, I couldn't help but be concerned. When I asked, she continued slowly. I saw them coming out of a cafe near the station, arm in arm. No, not my husband. He wouldn't do something like that. I was stunned, my mind went blank. It must be a mistake. Yes, it has to be. I kept denying Mrs. Johnson's words in my head over and over.
Karen. Are you okay?
Yes, I'm fine. It must be a mistake, Mrs. Johnson. You're funny. Yeah. Your husband wouldn't do such a thing. He seems so honest. Sorry for saying something so strange. Don't worry about it. See you. We parted ways there. I continued shopping with Lily and went home, but my memory was hazy. No matter how much I tried to convince myself that my husband wouldn't do such a thing, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Back home, I was struck with a headache from the shock of possibly being cheated on and the belief that he wouldn't do such a thing.
Mom, are you okay?
Yes. I'm fine, sorry. If Dad were here, he could give you some medicine. Why don't you rest until he comes back? I decided to take advantage of my daughter's kindness and let myself rest for a while. I get sick so easily over little things. I really hate being so frail. I was thinking about this, but before I knew it, I had fallen asleep. When I woke up next, there was a nice smell in the air. Oh, you're up? I was greeted by my husband, who noticed I had woken up. It seems he made dinner for me instead. Huh? Weren't you supposed to work late today? Lily called me. She said Karen wasn't feeling well. So I hurried back. I see. I'm sorry. That's obvious, right? We're family after all. Indeed, a family man like him would never betray us. Having experienced his kindness anew, I was convinced that what Mrs. Johnson said earlier was a lie.
Mom, are you feeling better now?
Yeah. Thank you. I'm fine now. By the way, about tomorrow, I was thinking of canceling our trip to the amusement park after talking with Lily. Really? But Lily was looking forward to it so much.
It's okay, Mom. Take your time to rest.
Instead, I was thinking maybe we could go to the park tomorrow. So that's what it was. I'm sure my daughter must have been really wanting to go to the amusement park. But I couldn't waste her kindness, so I decided to take it easy tomorrow as well. Here, eat this. I mixed in some supplements to make the symptoms a bit milder, so I think it'll help you feel better. My husband said that as he served the stir-fried vegetables. When I tried a bite, it was a bit bitter, but not so much that it was hard to eat. Thank you. But I'm not really in the mood to eat much right now, so I'll just eat what I can. All right. Well, it won't spoil right away, so if you can't finish it, eat it tomorrow. After saying that, my husband headed to the bathroom. Then, I couldn't finish all the food and ended up leaving about half, which I put in the refrigerator. He had said it was okay to eat it tomorrow, so I thought I would do just that. With that in mind, I also took a bath and headed to the bedroom. A few hours later. What's this, such a headache? I was suddenly struck with an unprecedented headache, followed by a severe wave of nausea. Unable to hold it in, I rushed to the toilet and managed to get through it, but what could have been the cause? Today, everyone ate the same things, yet there was no sign that my husband or daughter had woken up. Oh, wait. I remembered my husband saying he had added supplements while serving me dinner. It was probably some kind of side effect. But, being a pharmacist, he wouldn't use anything that could have a serious impact on the body. It must have just been something that didn't agree with me. After spending some time in the toilet and vomiting until my stomach was empty, the nausea completely subsided. The next day, feeling completely better, I decided to make lunch for the two of them who were planning to go to the park. I remembered there were leftovers from yesterday. Even though I felt it would be rude not to eat what he had prepared, I was scared to eat it because of what happened last night, so I decided to put the leftovers in the lunch boxes for my husband and daughter. Good morning. Good morning. As I was making lunch, my husband and daughter woke up. After serving them breakfast, I handed them each their lunch. Here, take this with you. Eat it for lunch, okay? Thanks for making it. We'll be off then. They said and left for the park. They would probably be back by evening. I wasn't feeling bad anymore, but there wasn't much to do. After a light cleaning of the room, I went back to the bedroom and fell asleep. A few hours later, when I woke up, it was already late afternoon. It was about time to get up. With that thought, I went to the living room, where my husband and daughter had already returned.
Welcome back. How was it?
I asked Lily, but she didn't seem very responsive. What could have happened? She was so looking forward to going out with her dad. Karen, you put that stir-fry in the lunch, right? Maybe she didn't like that. You know, Lily doesn't like vegetables. Indeed, Lily had only taken one bite of the stir-fry at dinner last night. Feeling sorry for leaving it out, I had included it, but maybe that was a mistake. Lily, I'm sorry, okay? You don't like vegetables, right? I apologized to my daughter, but she just shook her head and didn't say anything. I wonder what's upsetting her. Without knowing the cause, there's nothing I can do. I figured her mood would improve if I left her alone for a while. Thinking this, I decided to start preparing dinner and headed to the kitchen. Then, Lily grabbed my clothes. Is something wrong? What is it? Well. Just as Lily was about to say something, my husband picked her up and carried her off.
Today, how about taking a bath with Dad for a change?
Okay. I still had no idea what Lily was trying to say. Well, it probably wasn't anything serious. Deciding to focus on dinner, I began to cook. 30 minutes later. Crash. A loud noise suddenly came from the bathroom. It wasn't the sound of something being dropped, but something bigger, unlike anything I'd heard before. What happened? I quickly turned off the stove and rushed to the bathroom. Opening the door, I saw my husband lying on the floor, completely limp.
You okay? Hang in there.
I was in a panic over the sudden turn of events. No matter how much I called or shook him, my husband didn't respond.
I'm calling an ambulance right now.
While I was trembling and trying to pull out my phone, thoughts of the worst possible scenarios flooded my mind. I took a deep breath to calm down and was about to dial, when my daughter said something shocking. It doesn't matter about him. Let's just get a divorce quickly. What are you talking about at a time like this? I couldn't believe she was joking about something like this. Especially not about divorce. Frustrated, I raised my voice slightly at her. But Lily wasn't joking, her face was deadly serious. Was she really serious? Divorce, why would you say that? Well, Dad, he's been friendly with some woman I don't know. She came to the park today. She told me, from now on, call me Mom. That means Dad's doing something bad, right? That's why God was watching, Lily said. I was chilled by her words. I couldn't believe such a reason existed. Lily looked me straight in the eyes and added, "And I also heard them talking about how Mom is in the way and how to get rid of her." If what Lily was saying was true, then my husband was having an affair. What Mrs. Johnson had said was true. And that perfume smell on his jacket. Realizing everything, I wanted to leave right away as Lily suggested, but I couldn't just leave my husband lying there. "Got it? So, let's leave quickly, okay?" "Understood. We'll leave, just Lily and me. But first, I'll call an ambulance." The ambulance arrived in about 15 minutes. As they loaded my husband onto the stretcher and into the ambulance, the paramedics asked if I wanted to accompany him. I declined, saying I would go separately because of Lily. But honestly, I didn't even want to go to the hospital. I couldn't believe my husband was having an affair. I hadn't seen it myself, but Lily was so certain. It must be true. All the kindness he showed to me and Lily, was it just to avoid suspicion? The realization that I had been deceived filled me with anger. How could he? Feelings of deep resentment I'd never felt before towards my husband surged within me. Without a word, Lily and I left the house. We got into the car and drove aimlessly, with no particular destination in mind. "Mom, about Dad. It's hard on Lily, but right now, I don't even want to think about someone like him." Pretending not to hear, I chose to ignore the topic. It's unbelievable what he did in front of such a young child. Especially his own. Remembering the happy times with my husband and daughter, tears naturally started to flow. I wish he hadn't been so kind. As these thoughts crossed my mind, about an hour into our drive, my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number, but I pulled over and answered the call casually. "Hello, who's this? Is this Mrs. John's wife? I'm the doctor who treated Mr. John after he was brought in." "Oh, yes, that's me." Honestly, I didn't care much about what had happened to my husband. As long as he was alive, that was enough for me. But then the doctor asked me to come to the hospital. "Could you please come to the hospital? There's something about your husband that we need to discuss." If he's alive, that's fine with me. I don't want anything to do with him anymore." "Well, there's a matter of potential criminal involvement in this case." "Criminal involvement? What does that mean?" Confused, I followed the doctor's request and drove to the hospital where my husband was taken. Upon arriving, I left Lily outside the consultation room and went in alone to meet the doctor. "I'm sorry for the trouble." "It's fine, so, what's going on?" "Well, we found poison in your husband's system." "Poison?" "Yes." "What does your husband do for a living?" "He's a pharmacist." "I see." The doctor sighed deeply. I didn't quite understand, but according to the doctor, pharmacists can handle poisons under certain circumstances. "Do you know what your husband ate recently? Or if anyone in the family experienced something similar?" "A few days ago, I ate a vegetable stir-fry and suddenly felt ill at night. My husband probably ate the same thing for lunch today." "It's likely that then. The poison was probably in that dish." I shuddered at the doctor's words. If this was true, my husband had deliberately poisoned me with clear intent to harm. "It'll make you feel better because it has supplements in it," he had lied. After the conversation with the doctor, Lily and I went to my husband's hospital room. He had regained consciousness, apparently having been saved by stomach pumping. "Karen, sorry for collapsing suddenly." My husband apologized in a weak voice. But his words no longer had any effect on me. He was probably just frustrated that his attempt had failed. I simply said, "Too bad for you." "Huh?" Even in the face of everything, it seemed my husband was still intent on playing innocent. His face bore an expression of feigned ignorance. As if to say, I don't know anything. I couldn't stay in the same room with him and keep my composure. I left the house keys on his bedside table and left the hospital. Lily and I decided to return to my parents' home for the time being. Thinking about the possibility of something happening to Lily, I realized I just couldn't stay in that house anymore. About a week later, my husband called. He hadn't taken his cell phone to the hospital due to the emergency. I'm fine now, sorry to worry you. Are you at your parents' house? Yes. You can come back anytime. He sounded the same as ever, asking us to return. I couldn't tell what was real and what was an act anymore. I couldn't trust anything about him now. I decided it was time to confront him. All right. We'll come over now. Okay. I'll be waiting. After hanging up, I told Lily. Hey, this might be the last time we see Dad. Is that okay? Yeah. Dad did something bad. Lily seemed quite angry at her father too. Resolved, I took Lily and headed to the house where my husband was waiting.
Welcome back. I missed you.
My husband greeted us with a smile, but Lily and I were distinctly cold in response. Lily even went as far as to say, "Don't touch me." Hey, what's wrong? Why are you so mad? He joked as he headed towards the living room. We followed him. Sitting on the living room sofa, I went straight to the point and asked him bluntly. Are you having an affair? Huh? Me? That's a harsh joke, so, Lily, did you enjoy your time at Grandma's? He deflected, trying to change the subject. But Lily was direct. Dad, who was that woman you looked so happy talking to in the park? The one who told me to call her mom? Ah, that woman is. He was visibly shaken by Lily's question. Blinking rapidly and avoiding eye contact. That's just a friend. A friend of mine. Do you really think such a childish excuse will work? Since when does a friend ask someone's child to call her mom? Especially knowing you're married. That's, well. He was truly foolish. To think such an excuse would work. I had been taken for a fool. He looked down, silent for a while. I thought he might finally admit it. But then I realized he was using the opportunity to sneakily use his phone under the table.
What are you doing? Do you think you can make a fool of me?
Anger erupted inside me, and I raised my voice as I snatched his phone away.
Hey! What are you doing? Give it back.
My husband's phone displayed messages from a woman who appeared to be his mistress. In such a tense situation, I couldn't believe what he was doing. Despite my disbelief, I checked the messages and found something shocking. I tried to get rid of her today, but it didn't work. If I keep it up for a few more days, it'll surely work. She's frail and will definitely just take whatever I say and keep taking it. Really? Won't she eventually catch on? Your wife is such a fool, lol. I'm praying that you become my husband soon. The messages were filled with even more embarrassing content. It really was my husband's doing. So the mistress is named Ashley, huh? And you were trying to get rid of me, huh? No, that's not. What do you mean not? It's all here in the messages. It's your fault. Now that everything was out in the open. My husband, with nothing left to lose, glared at me with a rage I had never seen before. I'm tired of having to take care of Lily and do everything because of your frailty. So he had finally shown his true colors. It was all about him, not caring about anyone else. Was it really so hard for him to take care of Lily, our daughter? If that's how you felt, you should have just asked for a divorce.
I couldn't just say that.
Why not? You're just worried about how it looks to others, right? If I happened to disappear because of the poison you prepared, everyone would just pity you. But now it's backfired on you. What do you mean? You ate the lunch I brought, right? Yeah. That was the leftovers of what you made for me. Hearing this, my husband's face turned even redder.
Don't mess with me. You made me eat that, and I ended up unconscious.
The joke was on him. If he hadn't made that dish in the first place, none of this would have happened. No, you made it, remember? Anyway, it doesn't matter now. As you wished, I'll divorce you. Just sign the divorce papers. I said this as I handed him the divorce papers. I had picked them up from the office while I was at my parents' house.
Ha! I'm not getting a divorce.
At this point, what are you even talking about? We can't just continue like this. What about Lily? When my husband said this, Lily ran toward him. Then, suddenly, smack! Lily's powerful slap hit my husband's cheek.
I hate you, Dad. I never want to see you again.
Crying, Lily shouted at her father. Even my husband was visibly shaken, holding his slapped cheek in disbelief. Now you see, right? Lily doesn't consider you her father anymore. This is all your own doing. Realizing he had no ground left to stand on, my husband quietly signed the divorce papers. That's it, then. Go on, leave. No, there's still something left to do, I said, picking up my husband's phone to call Ashley, his mistress. Assuming it was my husband calling, she answered in a good mood. Hey, what's up? I'm John's wife. Ashley's voice turned ice cold in an instant. It's not surprising, given that she suddenly received a call from the wife of the man she's having an affair with.
It seems you've been involved in quite a scheme with my husband. You do realize that's a serious crime, right?
No, I wonder how many years you'll end up spending in prison. That'll be interesting to see. When I mentioned prison, Ashley began to panic.
Please, anything but that.
So, what's your plan?
If it's a settlement, I'll pay whatever amount you ask for. Just please, not the police.
She seemed desperate to avoid arrest, her voice quivering. But I wasn't going to let her off that easily. She needed to face the consequences of her actions.
Whether I'll settle for a payment will be decided later. For now, live with the fear of what might happen. Wait.
I cut off the call before Ashley could say more. My husband, who had heard the entire conversation, realized he might be next. His face turned pale, his usual confidence completely gone. You heard what they did, right? I could go to the police right now, but what will you do?
Just, please spare me that. For now, I'll have my lawyer contact you about the details. Of course, you'll be covering the legal fees.
That's okay, right? Okay. I understand. So, that day, I left my husband and returned to my parents' house. The next day, I immediately hired a lawyer and officially demanded alimony from both my husband and Ashley. I wasn't going to let this end easily. I also requested that a certified mail be sent to both my husband's and Ashley's workplaces, explaining their actions. A week passed, and by now, the lawyer's mail must have reached their offices. Honestly, I could have reported them to the police, but this way, they were socially obliterated. My ex-husband, having consumed the poison himself, was part of his own downfall. I refrained from reporting to avoid any suspicion on myself. I never imagined that man could be such a despicable person. I hope he lives his life full of regrets from now on. A month later, the full amount of the alimony I demanded was deposited into my account, completely severing my ties with my ex-husband. Still, I couldn't help but worry about Lily. Regardless of what he did, he was her only father. Do you ever want to see your dad? Not right now, but maybe someday. It's natural for her to feel that way. Despite everything, she was very attached to him and must be feeling lonely. I decided to respect her wishes if she ever wants to meet him again. As for my ex-husband, I found out through a message that he had to borrow money to pay the alimony. He also left his job because the affair became known at his workplace. And now he's juggling day and night shifts to pay off his debt. Ashley, it seems, didn't stay with him after the incident, and now reportedly works at a bar at the edge of town. Both of them are living the consequences of their actions, and I feel like I've gotten my revenge. Of course, I have no intention of forgiving them.
My focus now is solely on Lily and improving my health. I'm planning to start exercising to improve my health, even just a little bit, given my frail condition. I want a large room, about 200 square feet.
Emma exclaims, her enthusiasm met with a grumble from her stepbrother. While I was unpacking, catching the interaction between the two out of the corner of my eye, he called out to me in a teasing tone. Hey, no complaining even if you're not happy. Remember, it's divorce if you oppose me. They're over the moon about their new house, oblivious to its secrets. Seeing their joy, I can't help but feel pity and decide to reveal the truth. My name is Mia Smith. I'm a 35-year-old illustrator. I have a twin sister. Her name is Charlotte. She, like me, is also an illustrator but also works as a manga artist. I work as an illustrator, and in the gaps between, I also take on another job. While the other job might technically be my main profession, my passion lies in illustration, so I often refer to that as my primary occupation. My twin sister, Charlotte, and I are identical in every way, from our faces to our figures. We're so alike that even our parents struggle to tell us apart. It was to the point where they'd get confused and frustrated, a perfect example of how identical we were. In the past, we used to exploit this similarity for pranks. We'd switch places for tests or trick adults by making them guess who was who. This lifestyle changed when our father scolded us severely.
You weren't born twins to make people feel bad.
He scolded us that we were scolded for being born to support each other, not to cause trouble, so we stopped doing things that would bother people. Seeing the sad faces of our father and mother at that time made us realize that we were truly doing something wrong. Since then, we've never used our identical appearance to hurt anyone. It's a sign that we've grown up. I'm single, while Charlotte is married. I'm cautious when it comes to seeing men as romantic prospects, but Charlotte has always been more inclined towards love. She has often been deceived by the wrong guys, turning to me for comfort. However, her current husband is a great guy and understands her personality and career and cares deeply for our family. His name is Jack Johnson. They met through a friend, and Charlotte fell for his sincerity and kindness. Jack has a daughter, Emma, from his previous marriage. He had to take her in after his ex-wife pushed her onto him. Initially, this made me feel uneasy. How do you feel about saying she was pushed onto you? Emma is your precious daughter, isn't she? You're right. She's more important to me than my own life. But Emma is a girl, and with my job requiring frequent travel, the house often ends up empty. Being a man, I thought she'd be better off with her mother. I figured it's better for her to feel loved by her mother than to be lonely with me. Back then, I wasn't confident about raising her on my own. As my brother-in-law spoke of his complex circumstances, his face contorted with emotion, I apologized. I had hurt him by speaking subjectively without fully understanding his family situation. I also apologized to Charlotte. I regretted asking unpleasant questions after she introduced me to her husband. However, they both forgave my rudeness. It's natural for you to be worried, Mia. You're concerned that Charlotte's husband might not be treating Emma right. Especially since Charlotte is such a kind-hearted person. You must have been worried she might fall for the wrong guy. She must have had her concerns too, but she never asked for details, probably not wanting to trouble him. Hearing our conversation today must have reassured you a bit, right? At first, I was worried just like you, Mia. But seeing Jack with Emma, all my worries disappeared. I know better than anyone how much he cares for her. Their laughter and happiness made me realize my meddling was unnecessary. They will be fine. They're strong together and can overcome anything. While I'm happy Charlotte found someone she can rely on, I can't help feeling a bit lonely. Charlotte, who used to come to me for everything, saying big sister, is no longer here. I feel like my role as an elder sister is over, leaving me with a sense of emptiness. But seeing Charlotte happy is what matters most to me. Feeling this sincerely, I implored him, please, take good care of Charlotte. In response, he promised, I will cherish her for life. We then chatted about casual things. Jack shared more about Emma and the circumstances of his divorce. His job kept him so busy that he couldn't be involved in household chores or childcare. Jack said that the inability to spend quality time together as a couple led to strains in our marriage, ultimately resulting in divorce. As I climbed the career ladder, I became more work-oriented, putting a lot of burden on my wife. He confessed, acknowledging that it was understandable why she left him. But when the conversation shifted to Emma, his face lit up with a father's pride. She might be a bit of a mischief maker, but she's essentially an honest, lovable child. I think you, Mia, would get along well with her. Saying this, my brother-in-law showed his doting parent side, which made me smile involuntarily. Seeing Jack's devotion to his family reassured me that he would take good care of Charlotte. If Charlotte is happy, that's all that matters to me. From then on, I decided not to interfere in their lives unnecessarily. That was until the day Charlotte came to me in tears. It was a day of heavy rain, so intense that the weather forecast had issued a flood warning. I didn't expect any visitors and was leisurely working at home when suddenly the doorbell rang. It wasn't a delivery, nor had our parents mentioned visiting. If it were Charlotte, she would have called in advance. Wondering who it could be on such a day, I cautiously checked the intercom and saw Charlotte, drenched in the rain. It's the first time that Charlotte, who usually contacts me in advance, has visited my house without any prior notice. I hurried to the door, and as soon as I opened it, Charlotte threw her arms around me.
Charlotte, what's wrong? You're soaking wet. Big sister, help me.
I was confused by her sudden emotional outburst in the entrance of my apartment. Living in an apartment complex, this was the entrance area. Understandably, loud crying could potentially disturb the neighbors. For starters, I invited a drenched Charlotte into my apartment, fetched a bath towel from the bathroom, and told her to wipe her face and body dry.
First, let's dry your hair. I'll also make you something warm to drink.
It had been ages since Charlotte had come to me like this, crying for help. This scene, so familiar from our childhood, had become rare over the years. Usually, when Charlotte was this distraught, it meant she was in a tough spot. Charlotte, who's not good at leaning on others, only seeks help when she's reached her limit. Was something wrong at home? While these worries grew in my heart, I first prepared to warm her up. After getting the bath ready and making sure she was warmed up, I called her out. She obediently followed me. She seemed more relaxed after the bath, returning to the living room where I placed a warm cup of coffee in front of her.
What happened? For you to come to my place without any notice, it must be something serious, right?
I gently asked Charlotte, who was calming down while sipping her coffee. At my words, tears welled up in her eyes again, but she held them back as she explained. Actually, Jack has been acting strange lately. Charlotte spoke with such seriousness, and upon closer inspection, her face appeared worn and exhausted. Since moving in with Jack, Charlotte had been juggling housework and her job. Emma was still a high school student and required a lot of attention. Charlotte works from home, and told she was left with almost all the household responsibilities. I knew I'd be taking care of the house because of his previous marriage, but he's been pushing all the housework onto me, and it's getting harder to manage my work. Charlotte, who has never raised a child before, seems to be having quite busy days. She's handling daily lunch preparations, washing sports uniforms, and getting school materials ready. But she initially tried to cope, thinking it's part of being a wife. However, the household chores asked by Jack and Emma kept increasing. At first, it was really just the typical household chores any wife would do. But gradually, it turned into preparing things for Jack's work, getting Emma ready for school, and it even escalated to running errands, giving massages, and being ordered around to fetch things. Both started to look down on her for working from home, with Jack even resorting to emotional abuse, saying, "I'm the one providing for you." Charlotte was told that as long as she didn't contribute financially, she had to obey Jack and Emma unconditionally. If Charlotte defied him, it'll mean immediate divorce. This way, they controlled her, pushing her into a corner. Emma seemed nice at first, But when Jack started treating me like this, she began to see me more like a servant. Charlotte described how Emma would complain about even minor things forgotten in her school preparation and continuously criticize the food. The only time she felt appreciated was in the first few days after their marriage. Overwhelmed by the unfairness, Charlotte asked Emma to do some things for herself, only to be met with cold stares and scolding. "Charlotte, you're just sitting at home with your remote work, right? I'm giving you tasks to do. Yet, how can you look so stressed? Dad's much busier and has it tougher. How can you even show a tired face? It's unbelievable. Aren't you being provided for by Dad?" That night, Emma reported this to Jack, and Charlotte faced his wrath. Since then, she never dared to ask Emma to do anything. Fearing that Jack would find out and mentally corner her further, Charlotte endured in silence. Our job as illustrators depends a lot on our mental state. Whether I can work effectively or not is greatly influenced by my mental state. When I'm mentally drained, there are times I can't draw anything for even a week. She confessed to me, in tears, that the constant scolding and fear had made her afraid to even pick up her brush. Unable to create satisfactory work, she felt she was letting her clients down. Since then, Charlotte had been enduring a life she feared would become unbearable. She continued to make lunches for Emma, which she didn't even want to make, and took care of Jack's work preparations, all the while trying to avoid any sort of conflict. She shared how she spent her days always on edge, trying not to anger Emma or Jack. But instead of gratitude, they began criticizing her work, adding to her misery.
Why is the lunchbox filled with just frozen food? I tell everyone at school that I make my own lunch. Charlotte, you need to help keep up this act. If they find out it's frozen food, I'll be embarrassed at school. Emma will be the odd one out. This dress shirt's collar is stretched. Can't you even iron properly? The previous wife would have done this perfectly. The Jack and Emma I knew before the marriage seemed like entirely different people. I had thought Emma was such a kind and sweet girl until she and Charlotte got together. But now, the reality was starkly different. It was almost like a fraud, and I couldn't hide my shock at the story. What should I do? I'm scared to be with them. I don't want to go back to that house. Charlotte clung to me, crying. I felt a surge of anger. It was unforgivable. Treating my dear sister this way, using her as a punching bag for stress relief, I just couldn't stand it. I gently hugged Charlotte, stroking her hair to comfort her. It's okay. I will definitely help you. I was determined to pull her away from Jack and protect her from those demons. But how? I pondered over how I could be of any help to Charlotte. That's when my eyes fell on an elementary school album. It reminded me of the time when we were scolded by Dad for mischief, right before our graduation, with photos of our pranks included. An idea struck me, and I proposed something unexpected to Charlotte. Remember the switcheroo we used to do in elementary school? Yeah, but why? Let's do it. You and I will switch places for a month. I'll live in that house as you, and you go to our parents' house, explain everything, and convince them. You want to end things with him, right? Are you serious? If Jack and Emma find out we've switched, who knows what they'll do to you? I'll be okay. There's no way they'll find out. But to do this, Charlotte, you need to be prepared. This will most likely lead to a divorce. Are you ready for that? Do you have the resolve to leave him? I advised Charlotte to think about herself for once. It was a sudden plan. She needed time to sort her feelings, and asked for some time to think and left. Even after returning home, Charlotte's life continued to be like hellish slavery, and it seemed her anger had reached its limit. She later contacted me, wanting to go ahead with our plan. Since I had a major event in a month, the timing seemed perfect, so we decided to execute the plan. I'll take care of the rest. We swapped the essentials while Jack and Emma were out, and Charlotte went back to our parents' house. I proceeded to cancel my apartment lease, ready to start the switcheroo. Within a month,
I planned to gather evidence to favor Charlotte in the divorce and show those two a piece of hell. They had hurt my dear sister. I wasn't going to let them get away with it. That night, the first incident happened.
What the hell is this with the bath?
Jack bellowed as I was having dinner with Emma. Jack always takes a shower as soon as he gets back from work. He used to instruct to have the shower running before he arrived home to warm up the bathroom.
What?
Leave the shower running? Isn't that a waste of water? His dissatisfaction with just a minor bath preparation mistake was beyond my comprehension.
What? Are you stupid? It's obvious that you should start the shower right before I get home to warm up the bathroom. How many times do I have to say I want to shower immediately when I get back? You're useless.
His words were harsher than I expected. Just for a small mistake in preparing the bath, Charlotte had been enduring such harsh treatment. And what did he mean by exactly? I had no idea when he would be home. While thinking this, I forced a smile and simply replied, "I'm sorry." "What's with you today?" "You're creeping me out," Emma remarked, suspicious of my demeanor.
"Huh? You usually get scared and can't do anything when Dad yells at you. What's with that smile?"
"It's really creepy." The crucial difference between Charlotte and me was apparent. Charlotte dislikes being scolded or seeing conflicts, being a peace lover. On the contrary, I have a fiery temperament and don't hesitate to confront, even men. I enjoy watching wrestling, cheer during soccer brawls. And I have dabbled in mixed martial arts. I couldn't comprehend being intimidated by a man like Jack. But Charlotte must have been trembling at even a slight reprimand. To convincingly impersonate her, I realized I needed to act more frightened. Hastily, I masked my confusion with a troubled smile and distractedly began to clear the dishes. "It's nothing, maybe you're just imagining things, Emma." I realized that I need to pretend to be frightened even if I don't feel it, as Emma is surprisingly observant. Jack seemed rather dim, so I might get through a month with him. But Emma could prove to be a challenge. I had Charlotte detail her daily routine, thoroughly simulating to become her. The more I learned, the more evident it became that Charlotte lived like a servant. Waking up at 5 a.m. to prepare lunches, sending them off. Squeezing in work during any free time, and hardly having any time for herself. Charlotte did all the shopping, and it was unthinkable for Jack or Emma to do any household chores. Charlotte would meticulously check Emma's belongings, finding and preparing everything she needed from her school prints. Since Emma always wants to shower first, Charlotte had to finish cleaning the bath and have it ready before Emma returned. Emma seems to be particular about cleanliness and is apparently very fussy when it comes to cleaning. The slightest bit of dust could lead to her yelling and complaining all day long. Jack would reprimand Charlotte if his beer wasn't chilled. And since their food preferences and meal times differed, she had to prepare separate meals. The one time she served a shared meal, both berated her. This lifestyle was unbearable for me. I'd have left within 3 days, but Charlotte endured it for a year. Why did she stay? It was because of our parents. Jack really takes care of our parents. He comes home with me every weekend when he's not on business trips and even wants to help them move into a nursing home since their health isn't great. I know our parents are grateful, so I thought if I just endured, no one else would get hurt. Jack, earning over $200,000, knew Charlotte cared for our aging parents in a cramped apartment. He offered to look after them in exchange for her compliance. Charlotte is kind. Given this situation, Charlotte couldn't refuse Jack's conditions, and he seemed to know this. Seeing how happy our parents are, I couldn't say anything. I couldn't admit I was suffering. Jack's method, akin to holding our parents hostage, revolted me. He knew Charlotte's character and exploited it, treating her like a puppet. I had always wondered why Jack could be so harsh with Charlotte and why Emma treated her like a servant. But now, understanding their dynamics, it was clear that the kind-hearted Charlotte couldn't possibly stand up to them. Everything made sense, and knowing the truth, I was shaking with anger. I will never forgive them. What? I muttered to myself, to which Charlotte, on the other end of the phone, gasped in surprise. "Don't worry, Charlotte. I won't let those demons, who took advantage of your kindness, get away with this. Rest assured, I won't let you suffer any longer." I declared this as if to convince myself, determined to endure this hellish month for Charlotte. Driven by the sole desire to help Charlotte, I endured the harassment from Jack and Emma, and though I was physically and mentally exhausted from the anger, I somehow held on, looking forward to the big event that was scheduled for a month later. And finally, the awaited month passed. I never expected Charlotte would buy a house like this. Really, I wasn't counting on your property at all. I never even thought about buying a new house. They marveled as they unpacked the furniture. I smiled broadly at them. I wanted to surprise you too as a thank you for everything you do. Despite my sarcastic tone, the clueless pair didn't seem to notice. They were probably too captivated by the new, fully built house we were in. They were constantly looking around as they unpacked. I had signed the contract for this house before canceling my previous one, and naturally, I hadn't consulted them at all, which initially infuriated them. "What do you mean you signed the contract without asking me, the head of the family? Where did you get the money for this? If I knew we were building a new house, I would have wanted to be involved in the layout planning. I won't forgive you if it's not stylish." Although they were initially furious about me acting independently, as soon as they saw the layout and the projected image of the house, their eyes lit up with excitement. "Wow, Charlotte, you have good taste. A backyard and a bathroom with a skylight to see the stars, that's so chic and amazing. The location isn't bad either, and it'll shorten my commute to work." It was purely coincidental, not done for them. But if they wanted to misunderstand, it worked in my favor. "I'm impressive, aren't I?" I boasted with a sniff, feeling proud as I began the remaining work. They must have been shocked that Charlotte had such a significant amount of money. Jack, believing he had the financial upper hand, never bothered about her finances. He even told her to earn her own way for anything she needed, looking down on her income. They must be astounded that a woman they underestimated had such wealth. I could easily guess they might start plotting to get their hands on it. But I wouldn't let that happen. This was the end of their hellish treatment of Charlotte. Hiding my joy at finally being able to free Charlotte, I struggled to contain my elation. Meanwhile, Jack and Emma excitedly discussed room assignments. "I want a large room, about 200 square feet. Emma, that's not fair. I wanted that room too." They mistook the house as their own, gleefully making plans. As I chuckled at them, they looked at me as if wondering what was going on. "What's so funny all of a sudden? You're weird. Charlotte probably thinks it's strange for you to have that room, Dad. You just don't suit it, that's why she laughed, right? Nonsense. Charlotte is my wife, she wouldn't dare defy me. Remember, it's divorce if you do." Watching them laugh carelessly, I let out a loud laugh myself. "You too, what exactly are you misunderstanding here? Huh? This is my house, not yours. What are you talking about? Have you finally lost your mind? I'm perfectly sane and not broken at all. I just don't understand why you two think you're living in this house. Why wouldn't we? I'm the husband and Emma is the daughter. It's only natural for us to live together." "Huh? I'm single, who exactly have you been mistaking me for all this time?" At that moment, they looked at each other, completely baffled by the situation. Just then, a car pulled up in front of the house, and out stepped Charlotte and our parents. "Sis, congratulations on your new house." We've heard everything from Charlotte. "Hello, Jack and Emma. That's Charlotte over there, this is Mia, isn't it? What is everyone talking about?" Jack and Emma were completely perplexed, their faces a picture of comical confusion. They looked around at everyone, sweat beading on their foreheads. Our parents and Charlotte stared at them with cold, stern gazes, their eyes full of disapproval. I'm surprised Jack can't even recognize his own wife. No eye for women, huh? At that moment, I let my hair down and removed my glasses. I had been in disguise to make it less noticeable, but Charlotte and I had switched places. Standing next to Charlotte, I revealed a smug smile and disclosed everything that had happened to date. I'm Mia, and this is Charlotte. The person you've been living with this past month was me. Surprise. What? Jack exclaimed in shock. Emma, on the other hand, was still trying to comprehend the situation, standing there with her mouth agape. This house was built with my money for me and our parents. Charlotte consulted me a month ago about the issues with you too. That's when I proposed this switcheroo plan. They looked utterly ridiculous, and I couldn't help but smirk. Finally, I could speak my mind. There couldn't be a more satisfying moment than this. Jack, unlike the timid Charlotte, was clearly uncomfortable around me, a woman who is more assertive. He lacked the confidence to verbally spar with me, and he was intimidated by my background in martial arts. Now realizing who he had been dealing with, he visibly recoiled in fear. He was physically recoiling, distancing themselves from me. Really, you two have been doing as you please for this whole month, haven't you? I'm the type who pays back what's been done to me. Are you two prepared for that? Jack, who had always underestimated me, was now trembling in fear, clearly aware that he was no match for me. Contrasting Jack's fright, Emma, still not fully grasping the situation, began to snap back. Wait, why did you switch places without telling us? Isn't that illegal entry? It's no problem since I had Charlotte's permission. That house was under her contract, after all. Jack and Emma had moved into Charlotte's place. It was because it was more convenient for commuting and better suited for their needs than their own house. Can you not say such terrible things about illegal entry? The landlord gave permission. But how can you not discuss such important matters with your family? Do you even care that you're married to Dad? Exactly. You've invaded our privacy. Influenced by Emma's defiant attitude, Jack, though still fearful of me, tried to argue back. I fixed a sharp gaze on him and took out my phone to show them a video. If you're talking about invasion of privacy, what about all the human rights violations you've committed against me? I showed them footage secretly recorded by a hidden camera, capturing their numerous misdeeds. This included recordings of verbal abuse and even instances where they threw objects at me, barely missing. Realizing they were in a disadvantaged situation, they panicked. What? You've been secretly recording us? That's a crime. Don't be ridiculous. Charlotte set up these cameras for security in her own house. It's not illegal. But making such decisions without consulting us, how is that acceptable as a human being? You're one to talk about ethics. Hearing my brother-in-law's words, my anger exploded, and I raised my voice in a shout so fierce that it silenced both of them. After all the harassment you've put Charlotte through, how dare you speak so self-righteously? And Jack, you approached Charlotte only for our parents' inheritance, didn't you? The next video showed Jack and Emma smirking and talking when they thought I wasn't around. When are you going to divorce that woman? I wanted a younger, more beautiful mom. We have no choice. She's worthless, but her parents own that valuable land. I've checked with a real estate friend, just selling that parking lot will bring in a huge sum. Their target was our parents' inheritance, a property passed down from our grandparents, which our parents had managed and lived on. The inheritance from our parents came from our grandparents, and they had managed and lived in that property with care. However, since the house didn't have any accessibility features, it became hard for them to keep living there. So, they moved to a smaller apartment that was more suitable for just the two of them. I heard they're now renting out the house to a friend. To think there was such a deceitful intention behind that help, my parents said, outraged upon learning the truth. When they heard about the plan, they insisted on coming with Charlotte to confront them. We've been grateful for your help, but to think you had such motives. We were underestimated. Fortunately, we never used the money you sent us. My father, coldly confronting Jack, placed a large bag in front of them. This contains all the money you've sent us. What? Jack was shocked to see the money he had sent over time. We've lived without touching that money, planning to return it upon our passing, as arranged with our lawyer friend. They were mindful of their uncertain health in the future. Considering their healthy lifespan, they had implored a lawyer acquaintance to take custody of their wills, updating them annually.
How dare you treat our daughter this way? We'll never forgive you for hurting Charlotte.
Jack and Emma, intimidated and cornered by us, desperately looked for an escape. But there was none, and my mother, standing firmly at the door, blocked their way. Where do you think you're going now? If you're thinking of going back to your house, it's pointless. We've already left your belongings outside, and Charlotte has canceled the lease. There's no going back. What? You threw our stuff out. Hearing this, Jack and Emma pushed my mother aside from the entrance and rushed out the front door. They were dumbstruck by the sight of boxes piled up outside. This is our family home. Why would we let outsiders' belongings inside? Unpacking your stuff was really helpful. Of course, it doesn't compare to the torture you've put us through this month. Thanks for playing right into our plan, I added sarcastically as Emma looked on, her face twisted in frustration. Realizing they had been completely outmaneuvered, they collapsed to the ground, frantically begging Charlotte for help.
Charlotte, please! Help us! We have nowhere to go! If we have to sleep outside in this freezing winter, we might die.
It was January. The heart of winter in Alaska, where everything was buried in a silver world of snow. Sleeping outside was akin to willingly risking one's life. However, I was indifferent to their plight. Why don't you build a snow hut and try to survive the cold? While I taunted them with sarcastic remarks, they glared back as if to silence me. Their desperate situation seemed almost comical to me. Emma and Jack, realizing arguing with me was futile, turned to Charlotte, begging at her feet with tears in their eyes. Charlotte kept her face down, not looking at them, and refrained from speaking. She's inherently kind-hearted, unlike me. I worried if she had begun to sympathize with them or was having second thoughts. As I was consumed by a fleeting moment of doubt, I was just about to ask her what was wrong. Charlotte raised her head, broke free from their grasp, and confronted them with stern words.
I want nothing to do with people like you anymore. We're getting a divorce. I've recorded everything, including the way you've treated me, and I'll be sure to claim a substantial alimony.
She was usually compliant, so her unexpected defiance left Jack and Emma speechless, surprised by her sudden strength. This was the first time she'd ever spoken back so harshly. Breathless with excitement, Charlotte seemed to surprise even herself. I couldn't help but laugh, feeling proud of her growth.
Well said, Charlotte. Be prepared, you too. I won't forgive you for what you've done to my family. There's no apology that can make up for it.
My words crushed their last bit of resistance, leaving them in tears and a state of shock. Thus, Charlotte was successfully freed from Jack and his daughter. They tried to reach out to Charlotte for help, but my father turned them away at the door, and a lawyer we hired swiftly initiated the divorce process. Thanks to the excellent lawyer, the divorce and alimony claims were handled efficiently. Afterward, Jack and Emma were left without a place in the community. In a small town like ours, news travels fast, and their bad reputation spread quickly. Their bad reputation had spread throughout the neighborhood, and I heard from Charlotte that Emma was now infamous at school, labeled as a troublemaker, making it impossible for her to continue living in our town. Having successfully severed ties with them, we are now living happily and peacefully. Charlotte moved in with us and is thriving as a successful comic artist.
There's no gift for poor people like you. Just go back home.
We couldn't understand what my sister-in-law, Emily, was saying. Emily was grumbling, voicing her complaints about everything so far. It seems she hid the present she was supposed to give to her daughter, Lisa. The reason she was in the next room until now was because she went to hide the present at the last minute. Emily snatched the gift Lisa had prepared right out of her daughter's hands. After examining the gift as if scrutinizing it, she threw it onto the floor.
Such a meager thing can't be a gift. People who bring stuff like this aren't family. Go back home.
Apparently, she was upset because it wasn't the brand name item she had specified. On the floor, Lisa's carefully selected earrings were scattered. The other children participating in the gift exchange were picking them up, but Lisa seemed frozen, unable to comprehend what just happened. As she slowly began to realize the situation, tears started forming in Lisa's eyes. She's only a 13-year-old middle schooler. It's not surprising she'd start crying. Seeing this, Emily had a triumphant look on her face. My mother-in-law entered the room later and laughed at the crying Lisa. Taking advantage of this moment, Emily continued to berate us. But this didn't last long. I am Mary Harper. While working a part-time job, I'm raising my only daughter, Lisa, and am about to enter my 50s. Lisa was born when I was 35 and is 13 years old this year. I have a husband, Ken, who is a year older than me, but Lisa is not his daughter. Before marrying Ken, I was married to another man. Lisa is the daughter from that marriage. We were a happy family of 3, but that didn't last long. My ex-husband died in a car accident. At that time, Lisa was only 3 years old. She barely remembers her father. I was initially engulfed in grief, but I couldn't afford to lose Lisa too. I decided to raise her as a single mother. For that, I needed money. Since then, I've been juggling childcare and part-time work. I met Ken at my job 2 years after I made my decision, in the spring. Being a single mother, I sometimes caused inconvenience to my colleagues, like when I had to pick up Lisa from kindergarten. Ken always supported me with these little things. Attracted by his kindness, we started dating. Initially, Lisa was nervous around Ken, being her first experience with an adult male figure. He understood this and approached her more as a friend than a father at first. Lisa must have felt Ken's kindness too. Gradually, Lisa warmed up to him. She started calling Ken Dad and looked genuinely happy. During our relationship, Ken confessed that he was infertile. I consider Lisa as my own daughter. Even though we can't have kids together, I still want to live with you and Lisa. Ken must have felt inferior about not being able to have children. But the fact that he showered Lisa with love didn't change. I remember when Lisa was sick, Ken rushed over to take care of her. For Ken being infertile, it was never a reason for me to leave him. Seeing him treat Lisa like his own daughter convinced me that leaving him wasn't an option. He didn't just pamper her, he also disciplined her when necessary. It was evident that he truly cared for Lisa. We had a thorough discussion and decided to cherish the happiness we had right in front of us. After Ken opened up about his infertility, he became even more caring towards Lisa and me. We started living together and got married when Lisa was 8 years old. My father-in-law warmly accepted our marriage. He dotes on Lisa as if she were his own granddaughter. Lisa has grown fond of him too, and we've built a good relationship with my father-in-law. However, my mother-in-law perceived me as a woman who seduced her son for his money. Whenever I visited my in-laws, she blamed me for every problem that arose. I was at fault if there weren't enough plates. Or if she found a speck of dust, accusing me of neglecting the cleaning. The list goes on. And it wasn't just my mother-in-law who berated me. Ken has an older sister, Emily, who is 2 years his senior. Emily is a housewife with 3 daughters, ranging from high school to middle school age. All with calm personalities, much like their father. She lives about a 10-minute walk from my in-laws' house, so she often brings her kids over to visit. Since we live about a 2-hour train ride away, we only visit during summer vacations and New Year's. That's why we regularly meet Emily and her family. Emily has a personality where she must always be the center of attention. She, along with my mother-in-law, picks on me and flaunts her new designer bags as a way to assert dominance. We aren't that well off, so this is the best we can do. My family is from North Dakota, quite a distance from where I currently live in Ohio. I don't keep in touch frequently, so I can't rely on them for financial support. I work part-time, but I don't have the luxury to afford designer brands. Emily knows this and flaunts it intentionally. She also works part-time, but her husband must have a good income.
I can't wear or carry anything that's not a well-known brand. My outfit today probably cost around $20,000 in total.
Emily's children wore regular store-bought clothes, so it seemed she was satisfied as long as she could dress herself up. I'd rather spend money on making Lisa happier than on myself. There's a big difference in our ways of thinking. I had grown tired of my mother-in-law and Emily's behavior. Lisa didn't seem to have a good impression of them either. Lisa's watching videos in her room, she'd say, hiding whenever they were around. It's unfortunate that my daughter, still a child, has to be involved in adult squabbles.
Both of them always have something to say, don't they? I'm sorry about that. It's always been like this since the past. Remember, both Dad and I are on your side, Mary.
Especially my father-in-law, he seems to have never thought highly of Emily's tendency to assert dominance. He would step in and mediate whenever there was an issue. Ken also didn't have fond memories of his childhood with Emily, often recalling how she would eat his favorite sweets. Both had grown up, and since Ken moved out, he seldom visited home. So, until recently, their interactions were minimal. After marrying me, Ken would only visit to let his parents see their granddaughter. I rarely saw him talking to Emily. However, Lisa and Emily's kids got along well. It would be unfair to separate the kids due to adult issues. With the support of Ken and my father-in-law, Emily and I maintained a reasonable distance. Fortunately, she never came to our house. Bearing it a few times a year made everything manageable.
I think as Lisa grows up, we'll see them less. Just a bit more patience. I'm fine.
I reassured Ken, and myself too. One day, when the Christmas lights began twinkling in the town, we received an invitation for a Christmas party at my in-laws. My father-in-law, being considerate, invited Lisa. Emily seemed to be organizing it, with some help from him. Of course, Lisa wanted to go. She's only 13. Not used to traveling alone for 2 hours on a train to my in-laws. The party was on a Sunday, and both Ken and I were off work. We decided to take Lisa to the party. With Christmas parties, gift exchanges are common. We couldn't afford anything extravagant but decided to prepare a present. Hearing this, Emily audaciously specified her own gift list. Along with the invitation, a list of presents arrived. Checking it, I found luxury brand necklaces, cosmetics, and the like hardly items for children. Each item exceeded $1,000. What was she thinking about a children's gift exchange? I had never seen Emily's kids with branded items. This seemed more like a wish list for herself than for the kids. Ignoring her list, we let Lisa choose the present. She couldn't decide in one shopping trip, going several times. Each time, her options increased, and she looked delighted. Eventually, she chose earrings and erasers, totaling about $60. Lisa eagerly counted down the days to the party. It was a special occasion, and we were determined to avoid any trouble. The day finally arrived. Emily's kids had stayed over from the previous day to decorate. The Christmas-like extravagant cake and roast chicken were apparently handmade by my father-in-law, who used to be a chef. The adults decided not to gather in the room too much, wanting the kids to enjoy themselves. My in-laws' house had a layout with a living room adjacent to a small room at the back, which used to be Ken's childhood room. While the kids were having their Christmas party in the living room, the adults were in the small room, sharing drinks. Emily's husband couldn't attend due to his busy work schedule. You could hear the voices from the living room, filled with joyful sounds, while the adults were engaged in light conversation. Emily probably didn't want to face me. She was in the room when there was a lavish meal, but now she was nowhere to be found. That was fine by me, as I didn't want to face her either. As the party was drawing to a close, it was time for the gift exchange. "I want you to accept my gift," Lisa said, holding the present out with both hands to Emily's daughter. They happily accepted the gift. It seemed that Emily was the only one who had insisted on those specific presents, and her daughters weren't involved. After all, it was a gift meant for children. Letting the actual kids choose was the right decision. The exchange was done in the traditional way, where music played, and when it stopped, whoever held the gift kept it. Emily's daughters seemed to enjoy the exchange, but there was a shortage of presents. They were puzzled, having prepared one gift per person. I was roped into searching for the missing present. The floor was littered with half-eaten snacks and toys. The missing gift must have gotten mixed up somewhere. I started looking, but we couldn't find one gift no matter where we searched. Maybe it was mistakenly thrown away? Then, Emily, who had been out of sight, suddenly entered the living room. Upon seeing Lisa, Emily started yelling, "There's no gift for poor people like you. Just go back home." We couldn't understand what she was saying. Emily was muttering, voicing her complaints about everything until now. Apparently, she had hidden the present meant for Lisa. She had been in the next room, probably having gone to hide the present at the last minute. Emily snatched the gift Lisa had prepared from her daughter's hands. After scrutinizing the gift, she threw it onto the floor. "Such a meager thing can't be a present. People who give things like this aren't family. Go back home." Emily seemed furious that the present wasn't the brand name item she had specified. On the floor, the earrings Lisa had carefully chosen were scattered. Other children were picking them up, but Lisa seemed frozen, unable to comprehend what was happening. Tears started to well up in her eyes as she began to understand the situation. At 13. It's understandable for her to cry. Emily, seeing this, wore a triumphant look. My mother-in-law entered the room late and laughed at the crying Lisa. Emily continued to berate us, taking advantage of the situation. But this didn't last long. "Emily, you're the one who should leave." My father-in-law, normally a mild-mannered man, rushed in from the next room. He began yelling at Emily while wiping Lisa's tears. I had never seen him angry or even irritated. But now, he was furiously scolding Emily. Even my mother-in-law, who had been mocking along with Emily, was silenced. "Dad, were you listening?" I had been the only one searching for the present with the kids. I assumed my father-in-law, who's not good with alcohol, hadn't seen anything. But he and Ken had witnessed everything. It turned out that only my mother-in-law and Emily were drinking alcohol. My father-in-law and Ken had non-alcoholic beer. While I was searching for the present, Ken told my father-in-law about Emily demanding brand name gifts. My father-in-law couldn't overlook such behavior and waited for the right moment to intervene. And there was more. Emily's children began comforting Lisa. "What are you doing? Stay away from her, you'll catch her poverty," Emily said in a panic, trying to persuade her children to leave Lisa. But the children weren't listening to her. My mother-in-law also tried to intervene, but all the children were facing Lisa. None of them turned back. It was as if they were showing through their actions that what Emily and my mother-in-law were doing was wrong. Apparently, Emily and my mother-in-law had always thought the children would be on their side. But the children's reaction left them taken aback. "How long are you going to keep craving brand name items? You're just a housewife now." I was surprised when my father-in-law moved the children to another room and shared a story from the past. Apparently, Emily had always had a habit of overspending. She started working at a hostess club in college, desiring more spending money. The salary was much higher than a supermarket job. Understandable for a young girl freshly out of high school to get carried away with such income. Moreover, there was a need to wear dresses and brand name bags at the club. She would work at the club to buy new designer bags and increase her shifts when short on money. Continuing this lifestyle for 3 years. However, she quit in her 3rd year of university. After my father-in-law discovered her club job. She tried to continue working secretly but gave up when threatened with being kicked out of the house. It was the only time, according to my father-in-law, that he had ever yelled at Emily. After quitting, Emily worked as a cashier at a supermarket and eventually became an office worker at a general company. where she met her now ex-husband and quit her job upon marriage. Even after quitting, she couldn't escape her lifestyle of buying brand name items. Her husband often scolded her.
"If you can't buy it yourself, it means it's beyond your means. Don't make others buy it for you."
The gifts she specified for us were all things Emily wanted to buy.
"A gift is supposed to be like that. What's wrong with that?"
Emily retorted breathlessly.
"Emily, you're living off your part-time salary, right? Yet, how can you afford so many brand name items?" "I've increased my shifts. All bought with my part-time salary."
Her response faltered when hit with the truth. My father-in-law didn't miss her hesitation.
"Then, what's this?"
He showed us his phone, displaying a screen with the total amount of debt from private financial institutions.
"Why do you have this? I saw it in your mother's room. There's no better proof than this."
Emily was speechless and looked down, crestfallen. The Christmas party atmosphere had completely changed. We decided it was best for us to leave, as our presence seemed to be more of a hindrance. It wasn't the kind of Christmas I wanted the children to remember. We bought Lisa's favorite stuffed animal on the way home and had our own little family party. 3 months later, my father-in-law informed me that Emily had gotten divorced. Her ex-husband hadn't known about the debt. After learning about it through my father-in-law, he conducted a thorough investigation. Shockingly, Emily had canceled the children's education insurance policies and spent all that money on brand name items. Her ex-husband couldn't forgive this and chose divorce. Emily, along with my mother-in-law, confronted her ex-husband's family. But it backfired and led to being disowned. Since that Christmas, the children had also distanced themselves from Emily. Fortunately, they were all over 15 and chose to live with their father. Emily is now being sued for alimony and child support by her ex-husband. She's behind on the payments, but luckily, her ex-husband has a steady income, so the children aren't struggling financially. However, raising 3 children alone as a single father is challenging, especially since he was often away from home due to work, which was why he couldn't attend the Christmas party.
"Maybe I can help with everyone's studies? I'm currently researching online education at work, so this could be a perfect opportunity."
Ken has always loved children, and they are fond of him too. He often helped teach them when at my in-laws' house, especially since he had stood up for Lisa. Following a formal request from their father, Ken started occasionally overseeing the children's studies online.
"Even though it's been half a year since the divorce, I still occasionally receive bitter messages from Emily."
Emily continued to deflect responsibility and berate Ken and the children.
"I raised them. What ungrateful daughters. I was kind in raising them, they will surely regret this. Divorce is just outrageous."
After the divorce, Emily apparently returned to her parents' home. Since then, my mother-in-law had been unfailingly supporting her, despite her volatile temper. My father-in-law began to have doubts about my mother-in-law's behavior. She, who used to frequently scold Emily, was now affirming everything she did. Now, she was affirming everything Emily did, which seemed off to anyone observing. When my father-in-law started investigating my mother-in-law, he found decisive evidence. He requested us to check something, so after a long time, we visited my in-laws' house again. Ken and I had been keeping our distance from my in-laws' house. There was no need to visit as my father-in-law regularly came to our home. They always went shopping at the same time every day. When we arrived, they had just stepped out. The living room, once lavishly decorated for that Christmas party, now had a melancholic feel with only my father-in-law's dishes set out. As we looked through everything, we found documents showing debts under my father-in-law's name. It made no sense for my father-in-law to have these debts. As we finished going through everything, we heard the front door open. They must have seen our shoes. Emily and my mother-in-law rushed into the room, clearly flustered.
"Why are you guys here?"
Panting, Emily confronted Ken.
"Emily, what is this? I don't remember incurring such debts.
My father-in-law calmly separated Ken from Emily and presented her with the papers. They were details of debts taken out in his name because Emily could no longer borrow under her own.
And isn't this in Mom's name?
It turned out not only Emily but also my mother-in-law had debts. Apparently, my mother-in-law had spent their savings, meant for their retirement, on lavish expenses with Emily. My father-in-law, a frugal man who saw saving as a hobby, had accumulated about $1.2 million for a peaceful retirement from his time as a company employee. But they had spent it all in 3 years and kept accumulating more debts. In total, they owed about $1.46 million.
It couldn't be helped. The stress of not paying child support was piling up. That's right. It's all the fault of the man she divorced. Don't shift the blame. You two are responsible for not controlling your desires.
Emily and my mother-in-law continued with their pitiful excuses, blaming the ex-husband, their daughters, my father-in-law. How could they think to blame others like that? My father-in-law refuted all their excuses with sound arguments until they finally fell silent. As if to end everything, he produced a divorce form.
Being married to you has been the shame of my life. Emily is not my daughter.
Seeing the filled-in divorce form, my mother-in-law started to panic and apologize, crying. Yet, Emily just watched and didn't apologize at all. My mother-in-law began urging Emily to apologize, but Emily, unwilling to do so, argued back. Finally, with nothing left to say, my father-in-law left the scene.
What are you doing standing there? Go and bring Dad back.
Once my father-in-law had left, Emily started to panic. It seemed she hadn't expected action, just words.
Now you want to make up with us? After everything you've done? Please, just stay out of our lives.
There was nothing good left to be gained from staying there. Ken and I left my in-laws' house. That night, while relaxing in the living room, the doorbell rang. It was past 10 p.m. An unreasonable hour for visitors. Checking the monitor, we saw Emily. Ken decided to deal with it while I watched from the living room.
What do you want at this hour? How dare you, a childless brother, speak to me like that? Let me in right now.
After we left, it seems Emily and my mother-in-law had a huge argument. Then, Emily was kicked out of the house. She tried going to her ex-husband's place but was, of course, turned away. She came to our house, reluctant to spend money on a hotel.
This is a joke. Leave now, or I'll call the police.
We're family. Just let me in. Despite Ken's warnings, she continued causing a loud scene. Even after being told she was disturbing the neighborhood, Emily became more agitated. With no sign of her leaving, we did as we said and called the police to send her away.
Why do you guys get to be happy? I will never forgive you.
She yelled as the police took her away. Ken, myself, and her ex-husband had all tried to reach out to Emily initially. But she herself ruined all of it. Approaching 50, Emily probably can't change her personality now. She can't accept that she has lost everything, money and family, and there's no turning back. Later, my father-in-law contacted us to thank us and update us on the two. It seems Emily and my mother-in-law ended up blaming each other. Eventually, they became estranged from each other. Both burdened with debts in their names, they're living in poverty. My mother-in-law reportedly paid alimony to my father-in-law immediately, but she likely didn't have the means to arrange such a large sum of money quickly. She probably took on new debts to make the repayment. Fortunately, the debts incurred in my father-in-law's name were covered by the alimony. He has rented a new place and is working as a taxi driver to rebuild his retirement funds. Emily's children still keep in touch with my father-in-law after the divorce. Despite everything, they cherish their grandfather, something he's very grateful for. Then came another Christmas. At my father-in-law's new place, Lisa and the children enjoyed a gift exchange. They chose the gifts themselves. There were no brand name items, but the presents that brought smiles to their faces were the best. Can brand name items and large sums of money that are beyond one's means really change a person's character this much? This incident has made me rethink my views on money. Lisa is still close with Emily's children. I'm quietly watching over them, hoping they don't follow in their mother's footsteps. My name is Sarah Jones. I've been married for 3 years, and I haven't quit my job, so I'm more of a wife in name only. That's because I'm always running around the country for work, and I'm hardly ever at home. My husband, David, understands this about my job and gently says that it's important for women to work too. I was grateful that there was someone in this world who understood and trusted me like that. But about 6 months ago, I learned that it was all just my assumption. It turned out that David had a mistress. At the time, it turned into a huge fight, and I screamed that I was going to confront that woman. Whether it was a good thing or not, David broke up with her. But after that, I couldn't trust my husband anymore. I was always wondering what he was doing and what he was up to. But I couldn't just stop going on business trips, and that day I was heading to a certain region. I've got some time. What should I do? Looking around, I noticed a stylish cafe. Oh, what a lovely place. I'll spend some time there. I casually entered and sat down, as I always do. The cafe wasn't too crowded, just a few customers. Among them, a couple holding hands across the table caught my eye. They looked so happy together. But then, I realized that the man was David. What? David? Why is he here? He's supposed to be at home today. The word cheating popped into my mind. Is he cheating on me again while I'm working? The cafe had music playing at a pleasant volume, and I could hear the conversation because there weren't many customers. I focused only on David and the woman's voices and started recording a video. Then I heard something unbelievable from David. Let's get married. But what about your wife? I'll divorce her. When she found out about us 6 months ago, she was furious. That's when I realized it. It's only you, Emily, that I truly love. Really? You're really going to marry me? Yes, I'll always be with you from now on. He then placed a ring box on the table. What? A proposal? While I'm here? I was shocked and saddened at the same time. I stopped recording, canceled my order, and left the cafe. So, that's how it was. Everything until now was just to deceive me. I get it now. Be happy, then. I whispered to myself as I slipped into an alley. It must have looked strange to see a 30-year-old woman standing there. But I couldn't stop the tears. I felt like an unnecessary person, realizing that everything I thought was love was falling apart. Ever since the affair was revealed 6 months ago, it felt like everything had been crumbling. I was always watching my husband, constantly contacting him even when we were apart. I would get anxious if he didn't reply and even wanted to cancel my business trips. But at that time, David did say he was breaking up with his mistress. I broke up with her. Really? Yeah, it's true. Look, I even deleted her from my contacts. I checked and indeed, the woman's name was gone. I felt relieved, but then it occurred to me that he might have just changed the name and the profile picture. Or perhaps, he could have bought another smartphone. After that, I continued to be on business trips. I kept in touch with my husband during that time, but that didn't mean he was alone. Yet, I tried to believe his words when he sent me pictures, claiming he was by himself. He wouldn't cheat again, not ever. It must have been just a momentary lapse. After all, he said he loved me, a career woman. That's why I didn't quit my job and made it this far. I kept telling myself that. But was it all just an act from David? While claiming to have broken up, they hadn't, and their affair continued. Even worse, they were taking advantage of my business trips to go on romantic getaways. I was devastated by this unbelievable reality. After being treated this way, I wasn't even sure if I still loved him. Over these 6 months, I kept reminding myself that we were married. Divorce isn't something to be taken lightly. That's why I tried so hard to keep our marriage going. Was I the only one thinking this way? How foolish. It was all a one-sided effort. Maybe it's better to end things cleanly for his happiness. If he loves that woman so much, perhaps it's best for me to step back. That thought crossed my mind. It would be easier for me too, probably. I played back the video I recorded earlier, trying to sort out my feelings. There they were, the woman's happy face and my husband's joyful expression. Their touching hands and the ring box. Let's get married. No matter how many times I heard it, my husband's words sounded the same. He clearly stated he was leaving me and expressed his love to her, holding her hand. And those words, "I'll always be with you from now on," never changed. But although the recorded words remained the same, the more I listened, the more my feelings inside changed. From wishing them happiness, I began to think, why should I, the one being betrayed, quietly step back? This is absurd. My feelings were turning into unstoppable anger and irritation. Hatred towards my husband was growing. I couldn't just let it end like this. With that thought, I made a phone call. If we were to separate, I'd drag him through hell first. And true to my word, I had just secured my ticket to do so. After finishing my work, I returned home the next day. As I laid tired on the sofa, the front door, which no one was supposed to come through, opened. I instinctively sat up, ready for anything, and then my husband hurried in. "Well, welcome back. Carrying such a big bag, where have you been? Looks like you went on a trip." What? By yesterday, I had already sent that video to my in-laws. His early return must have been due to something they said about the video. And he must have rushed back after finding out I was the one who sent it. But I pretended ignorance. I wanted to see my panicking husband's face. When you contacted me, it was a picture of our home. "Why are you carrying such a big bag?" Indeed, the picture he sent, as usual, was taken on this living room sofa. Basically, he had just sent an old photo to deceive me. Now that I think about it, I had received similar photos before. He must have taken several to trick me. And I had been reassured by those photos. "Oh, you're back quite early." Yes, I finished my work early. It usually takes about a week. I was worried about you, so I came back early. Originally, this trip was supposed to be straightforward. But I had planned to visit other places too. If only I hadn't seen that cheating scene. By the way, you look quite upset. Did your parents say something to you? How do you know about that? No, that video. Video? Oh, that one. It's well recorded, isn't it? You were at that cafe. Yes. I just happened to choose that cafe for a break, and there you were. With the mistress you claimed to have left. My parents scolded me. Well, that's to be expected if they have any sense of decency. It's unfair. What? What's unfair? Sending the video? But I didn't interrupt your proposal, did I? I didn't slap the happy face of your girlfriend. You should be thankful. It was a once-in-a-lifetime proposal, right? I never imagined you'd be proposing in that cafe, especially not in the middle of a romantic getaway with your mistress. Everything's been exposed, hasn't it? Yes, it's obvious when you see such a scene. Yeah, if that's the case, I should have stayed out longer. Rushing back was a waste. Unbelievably, my husband was defiant and unapologetic. Did he really want to anger me this much? That's the woman you said you broke up with 6 months ago, right? Yeah, that's right. So you didn't break up with her? No, that's correct. Basically, everything was a lie? Yes, it was a lie. Seeing you like a demon, glaring at me. I can't forget that face. It made me lose my love for you. So, it's my fault, you're saying? If you had understood my feelings more, I wouldn't have cheated. But don't you think that requires a conversation? You never expressed your feelings. And now, you're blaming me. It's not about blaming. I just wish you had understood me. But you said you liked that I'm a career woman. You wanted me to continue my job, so I did. I didn't expect you to be away on business so much. I felt lonely, so my heart wandered to another woman. That sounds like a child's excuse. Ignoring your own responsibilities. Say whatever you want. So, you're going to marry her?
Yes, I want to start over with her. So, let's get divorced. You're demanding understanding for your feelings, yet you haven't considered mine at all. It's laughable how selfish you are.
Laugh if you want. I want to divorce you. You know, divorce should come before proposing to someone else. If I don't agree to divorce, your proposal with the ring you prepared will be in vain. Polygamy isn't allowed in Japan, you know. You know I cheated. You're going to divorce me, right? I've already decided to leave. Divorce requires mutual consent. It doesn't matter if only you decide. Or did you delay the divorce in case she didn't accept your proposal? So, this marriage is like insurance for you? That's. My husband fell silent after that. A silent moment passed between us, with no conclusion reached. But it seemed he was firmly intent on divorce. He's the worst. Was he always this awful? Fine. I'll give you a divorce. But in return, I'm keeping this house. Fine, I'll leave. I stood up, took out the divorce papers I had just received from the office, and started to sign them. Watching me, I could tell my husband was relieved. Here, sign this. Once you've written it, I'll submit it to the office.
You're not going to just take this and not submit it, right?
Of course not.
I don't want to drag out this ridiculous situation any longer than necessary. So don't worry.
True to my word, after my husband left, I went to my parents' house, had them fill in the approval section, and submitted the papers to the office. I never thought the divorce would be finalized so quickly, but I didn't want to be connected to a man like that any longer. After all, I had an important task left, seeking revenge on my husband. About 2 weeks later, my ex-husband, David, called me excitedly.
I got married today. Man, thank you. Now she's my wife. I feel bad for you, but this is my happiness.
Is that so? Congratulations.
Yeah, it's like a dream.
What about the wedding ceremony? Well, she's quite modest. She said she didn't need a ceremony, just wanted to be my wife as soon as possible. So we just took some photos and that was it. Really? Where are you living now? We're still living separately. Why would you live separately after getting married? I thought you'd live together right away. Well, I wanted that too, but she asked me to wait. She wants to clean up her apartment to make it suitable for us as a couple. What do you mean? We're going to live in the apartment she's living in now. It's quite spacious, but it's a mess right now. She wants to tidy it up first. I offered to help, but she wants to decorate the new place by herself. She's really earnest. So where are you staying now? In a weekly apartment. It has everything I need. Have you been to her apartment? You're married, so you must have been there, right? No, that's the thing. She's old-fashioned. She said she couldn't let a man into her room until we were married. It's unbelievable. We got intimate so quickly, but she's so different. But you've been to hotels, right? Well, yeah. We went on trips together. That was natural. And yet she won't let you into her apartment. And you find that modest? Yeah, she said no to the apartment. Interesting. Do you really know her well? What? Of course, I do. I wouldn't have married her otherwise. I mean, do you really know her? What are you talking about? I wouldn't marry someone I didn't know. Did you know her mother is seriously ill? What? She needs care. How do you know that? I looked it up. Why? She took my husband, after all. It's natural to investigate. So, what's her illness? It requires constant care. But I heard her brother lives with her. Her brother is in prison, though.
What? No way.
Yes. He's a banker. Well, he was a banker. What do you mean? For the sake of a woman, he embezzled money from the bank. After all, it's a bank, there's plenty of money there, right? He took as much as he wanted. The amount is about $1.6 million, I heard. He's serving time now, but that money still needs to be repaid, so it's a tough situation. That's his problem, not hers. Did you know she has debts too?
What? No way. I didn't hear anything about that.
She probably couldn't tell you. How much? $800,000. $800,000. That must be the money for the house renovation you mentioned, right? And you said that your parents paid for it? Have you never been to her parents' house? Oh, yeah. Why not? Didn't you go there to introduce yourself for the marriage? I was told that it's not necessary because I was feeling unwell. They said as long as we're happy, that's all that matters. It's all about how you say things, huh? Well, you'll see soon enough, but it's pretty much a rundown house. I can't imagine her parents have much money if they live there. And I doubt that house was ever renovated. If it really was, you should find out which contractor did it and file a complaint. So, about the debt. Mostly for her own expenses. She seems to be quite the spender. Only wears expensive clothes and jewelry. And she goes to the beauty salon every week, never misses her nail appointments or spa treatments. That can't be true. Really? Didn't she always wear expensive-looking items? Designer bags and all. Didn't you wonder where all that money came from? She must have her own income. Well, think what you want. My husband adamantly refused to believe it, insisting it was all lies. I expected that response. By the way, congratulations on becoming a father of 3 so soon after getting married.
What? What are you talking about? She's not even pregnant yet. How can there be 3 kids?
Don't worry. Are you sure you're okay not knowing the reality? She already has 3 children, living with her parents. At her parents' place? Yes. Soon, she'll probably move in with them. Then you'll quickly become a father of 3. Plus, she's pregnant now. So, a 4th is on the way within a year. Congratulations, Dad.
That's a lie. She would have told me if she was pregnant.
But she is pregnant. You should check it. She's been going to the obstetrician regularly. The baby is due in about 7 months.
If it's my child, she would tell me. If she hasn't, it means she's not pregnant. Maybe she has a gynecological condition. Your detective must have made a mistake.
Maybe she didn't tell you because it's not your child.
That's ridiculous.
Well, anyway. Have your parents said anything since then? Yeah, they called me a fool. Asking how I'm going to handle things now. I don't even know what they mean by that. From your parents' perspective, it makes sense. I've been sending them money up until now. Money? That's the first I've heard of it. Why would you need to send them money? They both work. Your father is retired, and your mother can't work due to her back pain. I've been sending them money, which is why they've been getting by. But now, I won't be sending any more money, so they'll probably struggle. Why didn't you tell me? What's the use in saying anything? Your salary is so small that we were barely getting by. But when they asked for help, I couldn't just turn them down. I knew it would be pointless to tell you, so I sent the money myself. That makes me a pretty good wife to your parents, huh? I didn't know anything about that. Well, maybe things worked out then. After saying that, I hung up the phone. But a few days later, I got a call from David, saying things were tough. We had to move into my wife's family home, and now her parents are moving in too. Oh, that's good. It's much easier than sending them money. Yeah, but when we moved in, I found out her family's home is really run down, just like you said. What about her apartment? She said she gave it up. It was a waste of money to rent it, better to live at the family home. Nice try. She wasn't living in any apartment. Really? But every time I dropped her off, it was right in front of an apartment complex. She never went inside the apartment, did she? Well, no. She always saw me off. Haha, clever. So, was her family home renovated? No, far from it. It's small and dirty. My parents say they can't live in a place like that. So I told her if she has a problem with it, she can leave. But then she said, after everything they've done for me, I should pay back all the money they spent on me. Typical. Now I'm living there, listening to my parents' complaints. They do nothing and don't work, and my wife complains about them. Well, even after retirement, many people still work. If they're able to, that's what happens. And to top it off, there are 3 kids. That's what I said. 3 kids without any trouble. Congratulations. What's there to congratulate? The kids are calling me their new dad. How many dads have they had? And they're patting her belly, asking when the baby's coming. So, everything you said was true. I told you it was true. You were the only one who didn't believe. I never thought it was true. I thought you were just jealous. Oh really? And now, with a sick mother and 3 kids, plus my parents, it's like a big, noisy family. Sounds lively and nice. I asked my wife if she's pregnant. She said yes. I asked whose child it is, and she said it's hers. Of course, it is. No, it's not. When I said it must be another man's, she said she doesn't know. It doesn't matter whose child it is. The fact that it's her child is all that matters, and that's enough. Wow, that's cool. It's not funny. Being the father of a child whose father I don't even know. I can't stand it. I said we should divorce, but she refuses to. What am I supposed to do now? Well, you reap what you sow. It's not a laughing matter. With the family suddenly growing this much, I can't afford it with my income. You chose her, so you have to deal with it. That's true, but my parents are blaming me for betraying you, Sarah. That sounds about right. Yeah, I think so too. But she always looks so neat and tidy, I thought she was a decent person. Oh, by the way, what about her debt? Ah, I heard about that too. You're right. It's $800,000. Now it looks like I have to pay it back. Figures it would come to that. Yeah, when I asked my wife why it had to be me, she said, I'm pregnant. We have a child, and I have to take care of my mother. With all that, how can you expect me to work? She said it with a face like a demon. To top it off, she said she married me because she thought I was someone who could take on all this. Can you believe such nonsense? That's pretty calculated. Yeah, it feels like I've been trapped. Like caught in a spider's web. But you walked into it willingly, so there's not much you can do about it. Your brother, was he in prison? Yeah, you got it. He really was in prison, for embezzling $1.6 million. My wife says I should pay that back too. After all, he's in prison, so the family should help each other out, she says. But why won't she work herself? Because she's pregnant. You seem to be enjoying this. How could this not be fun? I'm watching you get boiled in hell's cauldron. Were you always this spiteful? I became this way thanks to you. Thanks a lot. That's harsh. But, I still have a hell card to give you. What's a hell card? If I hand you this card, you can warp from the 3rd district of hell to the 1st. Or is it the other way around? Anyway, you're in for more suffering. You really want to push me further into hell? Of course. You said we were separated but stayed connected to your mistress. After being betrayed so much, how could I laugh it off and forgive? Don't underestimate women.
Please stop.
I can't do that. So, what's this card about?
You'll find out soon enough. Keep an eye on your mailbox.
True to her word, a few days later, a frantic David came to my house. I opened the door but didn't let him inside and decided to listen to him.
Hey, what is this?
Did the hell card arrive?
What hell? Why are you sending me this bill now?
He was holding a letter from a law firm. I didn't need to hear it to know it was a demand for alimony.
Why? Because the reason for our divorce is all on you, David. Plus, there's a video proof of him proposing to your mistress, so it's only natural that you get billed, right?
Why now?
Because now's the best time.
Why?
You're in the spotlight with your huge debt, your family's growing, and you're suffering, right?
Yeah, I'm suffering.
Adding alimony to that mix, doesn't that just make the suffering the worst?
Yeah, I'm suffering.
I wanted to give you that suffering. You're a demon.
You made me into this, David.
Pay it all at once. You're kidding. I don't have that kind of money. Then borrow it. Your brother embezzled $1.6 million, your wife $800,000. And this alimony? It's just a drop in the bucket. It's like adding a single drop of water to a burnt pan. I'm ruined.
Yes, you underestimated me.
Come on, forgive me. Please, let's pretend this never happened.
I won't. That's a joke.
Please. Don't make me suffer anymore. You brought this on yourself.
Why do you enjoy making me suffer so much? It's fun. I'm putting the guy who dropped me into hell himself. Is there anything more enjoyable? Have you ever imagined how I felt watching my husband propose to another woman right in front of me? You haven't, right? That's hell. So, I decided to put you in hell. This is just how it has to be. Everything is your own doing. Hang in there, Dad.
Please, stop.
David just sat down right there, crying and begging for forgiveness. But of course, I had no intention of forgiving him. Watching David suffer was deeply satisfying for me. Afterwards, David did work desperately, but a daytime job was hardly enough. He kept getting complaints from his family. So, he had no choice but to increase his income by working part-time at night and on weekends. But no matter how much he worked, it was never enough, and he was constantly blamed. This led to him suffering from depression, finding it hard to interact with people, and going to work while on medication. If only his wife had been kind to him. Or if his parents had been kind, maybe things would have been different. However, his family forced him to work, not allowing him to rest, insisting that as the breadwinner, he mustn't stop. Driven to the edge, David eventually couldn't work anymore. He would say he was going to work, but just spent his days blankly sitting in the park. Eventually, his income dropped to zero, and his wife, seeing no use for such a man, kicked out David and his parents. Leaving the house with his parents, it seemed David might find some relief. He rented an apartment, seeking peace of mind, but still faced pressure from his parents to work, and nothing really changed. Recently, I heard from his in-laws that David was missing and they asked if he had come to me. Of course, he hadn't, so I told them that, only to hear a sigh in response. Once, I did see a man who looked like David. Apparently, he had fallen into homelessness, rummaging through trash cans. Yet, his face seemed somewhat peaceful. As for me, I'm living a life of elegance alone. Still traveling all over the country, I spend my days with no worries or anxieties, thoroughly enjoying every moment. My name is Amy Elysian, I'm 32 years old. My husband is Harry Elysian, 38 years old, who runs an event company. I've been married for 6 years. People think I live a life without any hardships. But I feel a lot of constraints. And nobody knows the other side of my husband, who appears cheerful and positive. Harry loves gathering with a lot of people. This day was called Harry's father, John's birthday party, and the whole family gathered. While we were lining up at a fancy French restaurant waiting for our table, my husband proudly said, "We often come to places like this. Always Michelin-starred with my wife," with a smug look. "Well, aren't you lucky?" "Huh? Must be the diner down the street you're talking about. You always go to star-rated places with your mistress, right?" I shot back. "What?" The relatives erupted in anger all at once. I called out Harry's mistress, Susan, and exposed everything in front of the whole family. "Did you think I didn't know anything?" Harry scratched his head, looking embarrassed. Susan, suddenly called out, didn't even try to hide her displeasure. "When did you find out?" Because of Susan's suggestive posts. There was a photo of an arm wearing a watch Harry bought for several $1,000s. There were also photos taken from the passenger seat of Harry's car. It was too obvious, you know? Besides, I immediately knew about how you met Susan, at our house with university friends. That time, Susan had just divorced, and we gathered to cheer her up. Even then, Harry, you shamelessly asked for her number. It's really creepy how you approach women like that. No, it's just manners for a man to approach a beautiful woman and say she's beautiful. It's not like I was taking advantage of Susan's heartbreak. Right. Flirty Susan is just your type. Of course, you wouldn't miss the chance to talk to her. Harry's swift moves were unmatched by anyone. Amy was bored, you know. She seemed all sparkly and fun, but once we got married, she turned out to be boring and negative. I was deceived, it's like marital fraud, Harry often said. I met Harry through work. I was hosting events and weddings. Harry was the president of an event company, organizing many events themed around male and female interactions. I was called as a host, and that's how we met. Amy knew you were a playboy and still married you. You say I can't pick men, but are you all right in the head? But you said Harry was attentive, and there was something about him you couldn't ignore. You said every day felt like a proposal. And you, Amy, were completely fooled by Harry's tactics. Indeed, I married Harry knowing he was a womanizer. Yet, I never expected him to take Susan as a mistress. I was the one deceived. Harry is the type who doesn't feed a fish once he's caught it. As soon as we married, I was forced into a plain life. It wasn't the luxurious lifestyle everyone thinks. Harry's public face is fake. Since marrying Harry, I was restricted in many ways. I even had to quit the hosting job I loved. Harry's father was a business owner, and Harry had lived a wealthy life. Harry himself, with his father's support, ran his successful event company. So Harry spent lavishly on hobbies, on women, doing as he pleased. Yet, he expected me, his wife, to be virtuous, unnoticeable, and support him from the shadows. I have no authority over money, and it's my job as a wife to make ends meet with just enough cash. Where did my dream of a lavish lifestyle go? Every day, I search for cheap supermarkets and live a life of saving and thrift. Look, I don't skimp on money when I think it's necessary. I like to spend generously on my employees, friends, and young kids because I want them to enjoy themselves. And I don't question it. Being wealthy is a charm in itself. Your money is really your father's money, if you trace it back. Even the company you started was because of your father's support. Before marrying me, wasn't it your father who cleaned up after your womanizing? In the end, you're just a big baby still living off your father. What? The success of my event company is all thanks to my ideas and planning. Without that, it wouldn't have grown this big. Sure, I got support from my dad when starting, but everything after that is my own doing. You just don't want to admit it. You were famous for being a playboy since college. You did whatever you wanted in the event club, right? Women are all you think about. How to charm them. Of course. It's a world where you gotta charm the ladies. What's wrong with that? Then you should have just stayed single and continued playing around. Why marry me? If you can't be satisfied with one woman, you should have stayed single forever. All you wanted was someone to take care of you, right? You choose flashy beauties for affairs and mistresses, but want a wife who's quiet and supports her husband from behind. If that's the case, choosing me as a wife was a big mistake. You know it yourself. I regretted marrying you almost immediately. I chose you for your looks, but soon realized you weren't domestic. But I couldn't just divorce you right away because of the family, right? As long as we keep pretending to be a good couple, no one will suspect. You're willing to spend money on your mistress, but not on your wife. For me, it's okay to be satisfied with the local diner, but you escort your mistress to Michelin-starred restaurants. The clear distinction is almost refreshing. I married him willingly, so I can't complain now. But this marriage is far from what I imagined. I refused to continue this marriage life as Harry's slave. The moment I found out about Susan as his mistress, I couldn't see a future with Harry. I later learned that when we had the party to cheer up Susan at my house, she went to the bathroom. That's when Harry asked for her number. I can't believe he hit on her right outside the bathroom, even with me in the next room. Turning any place into a meeting spot, is that Harry's genius? And Susan didn't hesitate to give her number. She had just divorced and probably didn't want to see my happiness. She gave her number not because it was any man, but because Harry was wealthy and my husband. Harry, who loves women, and Susan, who loves men, might actually be a good match. Stop being jealous. It's pathetic, especially since it's Susan. What? Don't flatter yourself. Who's jealous? It's just immoral to go after your wife's friend. A secret romance is exciting. The sense of betrayal to the wife, to the friend, it's irresistible. Ew. There's a perfect incident that describes my relationship with Susan. We were at the same university, majoring in the same field. We knew each other, but weren't really close. One day, we talked about our future dreams, and it turned out we have the same dreams. That was to become an announcer. Isn't that a dream job for many women? To become an announcer, it's believed to be helpful to have a title like Miss Campus winner. Both Susan and I entered the Miss Campus contest. We both made it to the final, where I won the jury's special prize, and Susan won the contest. From that day, Susan began to look down on me. Since I was expected to win overwhelmingly, it only made her victory seem greater. I was bitter at the time. But, even though Susan won Miss Campus, she failed to get into any major or local TV stations. Same for me, too. Neither of us became the glamorous TV casters, seemingly promised a future with celebrities. After my dream of becoming an caster faded, I shifted gears. After graduation, I joined an agency and started working as a host for events and weddings. It was close to my dream job, so I enjoyed it. On the other hand, Susan took a job as a receptionist at a general company, far from any affinity with being an announcer. A receptionist is often the flower of the company. Typically a role for beautiful women. Susan must have wanted to leverage her beauty. She was popular, of course, but the president's son was particularly insistent in courting her. It seemed she decided to marry him out of pressure, but everyone thought it was for the money. She married the president's son after just half a year. Having a lavish wedding in Greece and US, rumored to cost about $2 million. I can't forget Susan's smug face. Her permanent employment was envied to the point of absurdity. She was the most beautiful and radiant at that time. Susan got pregnant soon after her wedding. She emphasized it was a honeymoon baby, but the timing suggested otherwise. Still, it must have been a chain of happiness for her. But just 2 years later, Susan divorced. It's funny. Amy, Harry didn't cherish you at all. You were just treated like a housemaid. He bought me everything I wanted and even let me open a beauty salon. What's the difference, I wonder? You're just like a caged bird. That beauty salon of yours, are you getting any customers? I heard you're overcharging for lousy services, leading to a storm of complaints. Without proper qualifications, just some basic training, who would go to your salon? Your staff keeps quitting, and you can't get new hires. It's probably running at a loss, right? That's what happens when you try to make money the easy way. Don't take your frustration out on me because you can't work. I realized my dream of owning my own store. Unlike some mere housewives. Since it's not your money, it doesn't hurt you, right? Harry's wrong in where he invests his money. He should have put it into something with more future and profit. And don't underestimate just a housewife. It's a tough job. I know that myself for being a divorced mom. But in your case, Amy, you don't have kids. I don't want to be lumped in with just a housewife. Don't talk about being a housewife without knowing the hardships of child-rearing. When children are mentioned, I have nothing to say. I wanted children too. But I reluctantly gave up because Harry didn't want them. The presence of a child would have been a ray of light in my monotonous days. I was completely left behind by the world, not even allowed that. The thing that infuriated me the most was Harry taking Susan as his mistress. It was about a child. Susan has an 8-year-old daughter. Harry dotes on her. Maybe it's because she's a girl. He especially buys her clothes like she's a dress-up doll. Despite his insistence on not wanting kids with me, he dotes on his mistress's child. What kind of nerve does he have? Maybe he spoils her because he has no responsibility, but to me, it's just baffling. And it's not just that. I can't help but feel Susan is using her child cleverly. Since her divorce, she's been active as an influencer mainly on social media. She frequently posts about her child on her SNS, hiding her face, to show off how hard she's parenting. But in reality, she's hardly with her child, leaving her with her parents. She's just posting stored photos. You aren't really parenting. You just see your child as a tool to shine yourself, right? Using your child to boost you likability is so transparent it's off-putting. What? Someone who knows nothing about parenting shouldn't talk big. I'm a single parent, so it's natural to rely on my parents when I have work. My daughter's living because I work. Work. That's what you call work? You barely show up at your beauty salon, even as the manager. You leave everything to the staff and just watch from afar. You blame them for every complaint and publicly scold them. No wonder your staff leaves. You're failing because you underestimate running a business. Susan really only thinks of herself, flaunting her celebrity lifestyle on SNS. Oh. I remember now. You posted about this French restaurant too. All on Harry's dime, right? Exactly, so what? Harry spends on me because I'm more attractive than you. You have always been good at winning men over. Even in college, surrounded by admiring boys, strutting around like you're in a harem. You think nobody knew about the bribes you gave for the beauty contest votes? How you circulated your swimsuit photos asking for votes? And handing out date tickets to less popular boys in exchange for votes? I wanted to win by any means. Most guys fell for me, that's my charm and ability. The best reward for their votes was a date with me, right? That's why I won the highest honor. The means don't matter, it's all about the result. Compared to the jury's special prize, it's like you got nothing. It's just a pity prize. I wanted to be an announcer no matter what. Even if it meant playing dirty, I was only focused on winning. My determination was worlds apart from yours, Amy. You and your half-hearted awards and attitude are the most embarrassing. And yet, you ended up in a job unrelated to broadcasting, didn't you? I wondered why a receptionist back then, but now I get it. You just wanted a rich husband, right? The perfect guy showed up, your ex-husband. You bragged and boasted about him. Gifts of rings for no reason, cruise dates, foreign trips. He was indeed generous. But you just had to show off, didn't you? On SNS, surrounded by branded stuff. Post the same things over and over. The more praise you got, the more trapped you seemed. Even though he was wealthy, you were desperate to fit in with the celebrities. Did you think it would last forever? In the end, you betrayed the man who gave you that lifestyle. You said the divorce was because of his DV, but it was actually your affair. Weren't you frustrated losing that lavish life because of your desires? Lucky you weren't sued for fraud. But that's just who you are. There was real DV, and he didn't care for our child. There were many issues. But isn't that a boomerang back at you? Didn't you want to be a famous broadcaster, marry a wealthy man? That's why you married someone like Harry, right? What, you think you've won this argument? So, Susan, you're ready to live a completely different life if you marry Harry? No way, I have no intention of marrying Harry. Being his mistress is more beneficial, a win-win. I'd never marry him. I don't want to be a slave like someone. Harry, why are you silent? This whole mess is because of you. What are you, cool as a cucumber? That's just like you. Susan says this, but what about you, Harry? You gonna leave it half done? Plan to divorce me and marry Susan? You took her as a mistress with full awareness, right? You need to give answers, not just to me, but to Susan too. Always silent when it's inconvenient, but that solves nothing. Always running away. How many times did your dad bail you out? Did you know your affairs and mistresses were attacking me? What's your responsibility to me? My prime years were stolen by marrying you. I'm at my limit with all the dissatisfaction and patience. If we divorce, fine. I have enough women to fool around. I could just hire a real maid. No need for you. What? Do you even understand how I've lived? I've taken care of everything, from meals to comfortable environment, so you could perform at work. Your success isn't just your effort. I've been your shadow support. Have I ever been selfish? Ever said no to you? Enough with the disrespect. Fine, let's divorce. But I'll definitely get my share of the property and alimony. Whatever. I'm satisfied with current situation. It's no loss to me. You're too flashy to be just a housewife. Beautiful, but you can't overshadow me. I'm the main actor here and you, Amy, are just a supporting character. Typical of a beauty contest participant. Both you and Susan are just full of yourselves, seeking approval. Huh, is that what you think? Then let me tell you. You attract women because you have money, Harry. I wouldn't be your mistress if you weren't wealthy. Don't lose sight of your worth. You're already 38, Harry. Your value is only decreasing. What will these women you buy with money give you in return? Just a physical relationship, right? Isn't that just sugar dating? Bold of you to say that after spending my money. Good timing, though. I'm done with women over 30. Younger women are better. Susan was a catch. Couldn't tell she had a child, her figure was perfect. But she looks like an older woman if she's not careful. Was thinking of breaking up with her? But Amy, you made it all complicated by calling Susan here. I admit Susan was a great woman, but I accommodated her a lot. Money, her child. But you're not functioning as a mother. I pretended to dote on the child, but I'm not fond of kids. Just bought her clothes and toys to keep her happy. Ever cooked for your child, Susan? Always eating out or delivery. How will you live without me? Running the beauty salon is impossible now. I can manage without you, Harry. Susan was bluffing, but she's already 32. Even Harry's rude, he's right about her diminishing market value. Having a child can be a negative or a positive factor. But Susan, she wants attention on herself rather than her child, so she ends up depending on men who pay her that attention. It's a repeating cycle. Up until today's discussion, Harry and Susan were exchanging lovey-dovey emails. But now, suddenly, they're hurling insults at each other. It's shocking to see love crumble so easily. Harry's father, who had been silent all this time, finally spoke up.
Harry, I've been quiet, but this is all your fault. You're not seeing yourself clearly. Your actions don't match your words. You've always been all talk, no action. I'm deeply disappointed and feel sorry. I know you've always been superficial, but I can't understand your inability to treat women kindly. It's often said that men are prone to infidelity, but not all men are like that, as I prove.
Indeed, my father-in-law and mother-in-law get along well, with him always expressing gratitude to her. Older men are often praised for speaking ill of their wives, but my father-in-law praises her every day. Watching them, I've always thought what a wonderful couple they are. I've always wondered how Harry, raised by such wonderful parents, could be so irresponsible with women. No, women flock to me without me doing anything.
Quiet. I didn't raise a son like that. First, apologize to Amy. All I've heard are excuses, and you keep putting Amy and Susan down. To think this is your vocabulary and expression at 38, I'm dizzy. I've been too lenient. Harry needs punishment. What? What are you gonna do? If you're telling me not to divorce Amy, I won't. Dad, your foresight is always right. You gave your blessing for my marriage to Amy, saying she's the one. My business is successful because of your advice. I'll pay Susan off properly and break up with her. So, Dad, don't do anything drastic.
Even Harry fears and can't disobey his father. My father-in-law is usually gentle, but when he gets angry, it's frightening. I've heard he can be cold too. Now, what punishment will my father-in-law give to Harry? Harry, you said your company's in trouble? Yeah. Why didn't you say it was in danger earlier? Were you waiting for someone to fix it? Harry paled instantly. Being his wife, I didn't know about the state of his business. But thinking back, he was often on his phone at home. I thought he was talking to Susan or some one-night stand. But sometimes his tone was different. There were times he sounded desperate, troubled, even yelling. Maybe he was on the edge. From now on, no more financial support for you. Not a penny from the company or home. Live on your own. No one will help you. Wait a minute. The company's in real trouble. Without financial aid, it's doomed. It's already failing. Why didn't you change your lifestyle knowing it was in danger? You didn't reduce your living standard even when you had no money, even borrowing. Debt collectors came to our house. What were you planning, keeping up appearances? And there's something else you haven't reported, right? Unreported? Oh, the employees. The employees collectively resigned, right? 3 months' salary unpaid, they're suing you. What? Sued? What do I do, Dad? Help me, please. I feel the same, and I think Susan does too. Harry, you're just embarrassing. Harry suddenly seemed to have deteriorated before my eyes. I wondered what I ever saw in him to marry him. On closer inspection, Harry, now almost in his 40s, is losing the firmness in his skin. His hair, too, is noticeably thinning. In his youth, he was revered as the king of the lively event circles. He carried that same aura into starting his event company, which initially succeeded impressively. He must have mistaken it for his own kingdom. Fairly handsome, with high communication skills. And also he had money. He was bound to be popular. Women were always drawn to him, and he took it for granted. Now, his company has collapsed. He's penniless. And he can't return to his youthful looks. Harry's hellish punishment is becoming someone no one cares about. The Michelin-starred French restaurant where we gathered for my father-in-law's birthday celebration. 1 month since the tumultuous scene unfolded there. Harry's company spectacularly failed. And so did our marriage. Susan also ended her affair with Harry. He's being sued for unpaid wages by his former employees. On top of that, there's my alimony. And the unpaid rent for the beauty salon Susan managed. He needed a huge amount of money. Harry, a pampered man who never struggled, is now mistreated in any company he joins. On the other hand, Susan, the mistress who also put on a face like a victim. Susan lost custody of her child to her ex-husband due to neglecting her parental duties. It's only natural. After the divorce, I felt refreshed and resumed my beloved career as an event host. I kept practicing to be ready for a comeback, doing vocal exercises and tongue twisters. Thanks to that, I started receiving numerous bookings. Finally, it seems I can lead a life that's true.